Reconnaissance has existed since the time of the cavalry before the Iron Age. Basically, it is a military term for exploring the area occupied by enemy or potential enemy forces to gain vital information about the enemies or features of the particular environment for later analysis and/or dissemination. While there are a number of reconnaissance teams around the world, the South African Special Forces is our focus today. What is the South African Special Forces? The South African Special Forces Brigade, popularly known as Reckies, is the only Special Forces unit of the South African National Defence Force, SANDF. It was established on the 1st of October 1972 at Oudtshoorn, South Africa. A few years later, the headquarters was moved to Durban, South Africa. The brigade was the first South African Special Forces unit. The old South African Defence Force, SADF, was primarily a highly specialized unit, born in the midst of a growing fire of communist insurgencies around the continent. The South African Special Forces played a significant role in the country's 30-year-long border war in Namibia and Angola. South African Special Forces now consists of Special Forces headquarters in Pretoria, 4 Special Forces Regiment in Langebaan, 5 Special Forces Regiment, Phalaborwa, and the Special Forces School in Murray Hill. 4 Special Forces Regiments specialize in maritime-related activities, whereas 5 Special Forces Regiment specializes more in overland techniques, especially long-range infiltration. The brigade is directly under the command of the Joint Operations Division of SANDF, and unlike other similar forces worldwide, is not a part of the South African Army. Members of the South African Special Forces are expanded into 2 additional groups. Although they are also termed regiments, they consist only of small numbers of operators who are secretive, seldom photographed, and expertly trained. The Reckies are one of the lesser-known or understood groups of soldiers in the world today, because their operations and formations have changed over the years. Operations of the Reckies over the years. The South African Reckies were deployed to many local hotspots between the late 1970s and early 1980s, particularly Angola. At the time, the main enemy was Southwest Africa's People Organization, whose armed wing, Plan, was a guerrilla organization fighting for an independent Namibia. One of the Reckies' most effective operations was Operation Mebos, which came in 1982. Here they penetrated deep into Angola and destroyed the SWAPO headquarters. In Operation Askari, in the winter of 1984, the Reckies cut off almost all supply lines to and from the SWAPO in Angola. In May 1985, a Recce team undertook the controversial Operation Argon, a failed attempt to sabotage Angolan oil installations run by Gulf Oil. The South African Special Forces was also involved in direct action against the Salika rebels in the fight for Bangui during the South African military assistance to the Central African Republic. During the operation, there was no record of death of any South African Special Forces operators. Also, during the United Nations Organization Stabilization Mission in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a South African Special Forces operator, as part of the Force Intervention Brigade, made the 8th longest recorded sniper kill in history, with a confirmed distance of 2,125 meters, 2,324 yards, using a South African-made Denel NTW-20 anti-material rifle. Likewise, South African Special Forces teams were deployed to Cabo Delgado Province under Operation Vakela during the Southern African Development Community Mission in Mozambique. Selection and training of the Reckies. South African Special Forces are a force to reckon with around the world. This is because of the training they have to undergo. The selection process into the South African Special Forces is called the Ultimate Challenge. It is considered one of the hardest Special Forces selection courses in the world. Before a soldier can think of attending Special Forces selection, he or she must meet very high requirements. However, in accordance with SANDF regulation, only South African citizens are permitted. Pre-selection training of the Reckies. Pre-selection training involves all aspects of psychological and physical tests. For the psychological tests, soldiers will be given written tests and oral interviews with Special Forces non-commissioned officers. At this point, a soldier's psychological balance is checked. It is expected that a soldier must be self-controlled and mature. In situations where there are any indications of mental instability, such soldiers are ejected from the course without any questions. After the psychological exercise come the physical tests. The magnitude of what men go through to make it into a unit is intended as a mutual selection. It is at this stage that the instructors determine the fitness of a candidate through whatever means they can devise. Equally important, though, is the candidate's chance to select whether he or she truly wants to follow through and be among the best at the end of the training. The physical tests are designed to strip everything away down to raw and bloody will, forcing each soldier to find a way to not only stay in the training, but to also find a way to perform up to standards. When the Reckies was first established, a traditional SAS-style course was undertaken. Half of the cruel and unusual punishment came from the landscape and wildlife of Africa itself. The heat, terrain, and ability to endure it ensured that it came down to Darwin's survival of the fittest. Now, the physical test includes 40 continuous push-ups, 67 sit-ups in 2 minutes, fireman lift, 3-kilometer run in full gear in 13 minutes, a rope climb to show upper body strength, 40 shuttle runs in 95 seconds, and wall scaling. A student must scale a 10-foot high, 3-meter wall, complete a 15-kilometer march in less than 120 minutes, and perform 120 shuttle kicks. In the beginning, those that showed interest in becoming Special Forces were not allowed to quit once they began the training. This decision was reached after a series of events where a good number of people would start the training, and only very few of them would graduate into becoming part of the Reckies. However, after employing the services of a psychologist in the training process, volunteers were eventually allowed to drop out or throw in the towel. Also, sports science played a huge role in helping doctors find out if the cardiovascular system was capable of enduring training. Joint flexibility, wear and tear on knees, hips, and lower back were profiled with X-rays. Load tests were also carried out to weed out those who were unable to carry up to 120 pounds on their back. Parachute selection course. After the volunteers are screened based on psychological and physical strength, the ones that make it to the next stage have to go through the basic parachute school, which is one of the most demanding. All Special Forces candidates who aren't parachute qualified will have to attend this course. Special Forces selection. Selection is an event during which candidates are placed in an extremely mentally and physically demanding set of situations and circumstances, through which they must pass. It is approximately a week in duration. For the duration of selection, the candidates do not sleep or eat and have no rest period at all. Only an extremely small percentage of people who begin selection ever pass it. In some years, no one has managed to pass selection, and there are other cases where only 1 or 2 people out of an entire selection group pass. Special Forces selection. The cadre learned after a while that pushing a man to his limits and instilling desire while holding to the rigorous standards give the best results. Hence, the Special Forces selection process has to be a rigorous one in order to get the best soldiers. Selection is an event during which candidates are made to go through extremely mentally and physically demanding sets of situations and circumstances. Failure to overcome these challenges the candidates are faced with meant that such candidate had to be dropped. The whole selection process lasts about a week. Selection lasts only about a week because candidates are not allowed to sleep, eat, or rest at all during this period. Just as we stated earlier, passing the test is not for the faint-hearted. It is the survival of the fittest. Endless marching through rough terrain with packs, rationed food, and water day after day was simply too much for many men. There is an intentional lack of food for 5 to 6 days in order to test the men's resolve. Starvation is the hardest part of the training, and it's the one thing that messes with the men's will to finish. South Africans believe that when the body is beyond empty and at a physical low, a man's deepest desire can be found. Considering that it is difficult to keep a cool head in the midst of extreme physical discomfort, the candidate's temperament was constantly under surveillance, especially at these key times. Anyone who loses his head with another candidate or an instructor was asking for a swift ticket home. The Reckies needed the type of mentality that could ruck 150 clicks, recon a target, and hoof it back on foot with the enemy in pursuit, being out of food and searching for water. Only a very minute percentage of candidates who begin selection ever pass it. There have been some years when no one managed to pass selection, and there are other cases where only 1 or 2 individuals out of an entire selection group made it to the finish line. The Reckies believe that there is no room for mindless men on their team. They want men who are willing to face their fears in the most critical of circumstances, overcome them, and proceed with the mission. The Reckies training cycle. After the selection comes the training cycle. The candidates that get to this stage will be placed on a training schedule to acquire the skills needed. These skills include air cooperation, water orientation, obstacle crossing, bushcraft, tracking and survival, demolitions and tactics in urban as well as rural areas. During the airborne training, recruits are taught about military freefall such as Halo and Ha-Ho. They are also exposed to several helicopter operations, including how to rappel fast down a rope out of a helicopter. In addition, the recruits are introduced to combat extraction, along with learning how to set up an LZ. The land training covers various aspects that include sniping, demolitions, and reconnaissance. Climbing and photography are taught to new recruits. Urban and rural combat, although probably the newest training, is also taught during the training cycle. In fact, this training provided South Africa with a new counter-terrorist force. For recruits that wish to become qualified, they can take advantage of the medical and communications training given during the training cycle. The Operator's Badge. After an individual might have passed through the training cycle and excelled, he then becomes a full-fledged South African Special Forces operator. He then receives the Operator's Badge, which is given only to those members who have completed all the qualifications as an operator. It consists of an inverted commando knife within a laurel wreath, which symbolizes both Special Forces, the knife, and victory, The wreath. Standard operator badges are silver, but a gold badge with an embedded diamond is awarded to operators with more than 10 years of active service. New badges have been designed for wear on the camouflage combat dress. These are black embossed plastic on a thatch green background. At the moment, Brigadier General Rudzani Mafwanya is the General Commanding Officer of the South African Special Forces. Well, that is all for today's video. We hope you enjoyed the content as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Make sure to like the video and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more quality content, and ring the bell to be notified immediately when we drop new videos, so that you never miss out on anything. Until next time, bye for now.